Hello, I'm John Eves, Chairman of the Fulton County Commission.
And I'm Bobby Batista, Director of External Affairs.
Welcome to the Chairman's Corner. Well, it's been several years since Atlanta made national headlines in the midst of a cheating scandal in the public schools, and over a year now since new leadership was brought in to address this issue. As we move past what went wrong to getting to what went right, we thought we would take a look at the challenges facing our public school systems in both Atlanta as well as Fulton County.
A little later on, we'll talk with the chairman of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections, Dr. Rod Edmond. There's only a couple of weeks left until the election, and we want to make sure that you are informed on getting out your vote as smoothly as possible.
Well, let's welcome our guests, Superintendent Robert Avossa of the Fulton County School System and Karen Waldon, Deputy Superintendent of the Atlanta Public School System. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, you have the first question.
All right. Well, I'm a strong proponent of education. So how far has APS gone in the past year in terms of new processes that are in place to address some of the challenges of the past? Karen.
Thank you, Chairman. We are very excited about the progress that we've made within a year's time. Superintendent Errol Davis came on board early July of last year. And in 1 year, we've done a tremendous amount of work around reorganizing the district. We have moved from the K-8 model of schools in the high school office to a seamless approach to educating our students in a cluster format. So we know that if a family moves into a community and the student is a kindergartner, that if that student stays in that community, we know the middle school they're attending, the high school, it affords our educational leaders within those schools to really map clear strategies around what needs to happen for the students within that cluster of schools.
Right. Well, I have a son at Mays High School, so I'm certainly very aware and also concerned, but also pleased with some of the good things that are happening. Just elaborate on some of the other maybe success factors that you identify in terms of how parents and others who are interested in education can know if you're moving in the right direction.
Yes, well, a couple of things happened, we believe, that really stirred the parent base within the district. One was the reference you made to the cheating scandal, and the other was last year's major redistricting across APS. And what we've seen is pretty much an infusion of parents really concerned, and it wasn't that they weren't there before, but I believe that the past year has really afforded parents an opportunity to have a real voice around what's happening in their schools. We're very excited, had a meeting, as a matter of fact, last night with, at one of our elementary schools, a good parent support group come out, our opportunity to share about the Common Core. We have been able to standardize some of our practices across the district in terms of how we offer accelerated mathematics at the middle school level. Our fine arts program we've standardized, some of the offerings at the high school level. And we're just really excited because we believe that we are absolutely on course to make good things happen for the students in Atlanta Public Schools.
Superintendent of also not having to deal with some of the issues that APS has had to deal with in the last year or so, what would you identify as the sort of key success factors in making public education the best it can be for our children?
For us in Fulton County, as any large urban suburban school district, we've got challenges. We also have some great success stories. I think the top priority for us has been really finding top talent, making sure we have a great teacher in every classroom and great principals at the helm in every school. In just a little over 15 months, we've had an opportunity to recruit and replace about a third of our principals, 33 to be exact. And 19 assistant principals that unfortunately haven't been able to meet our standards around performance, and we've had to make some tough decisions. But there's only one way we're going to become a great school district, and that is attracting, retaining, and growing our folks.
Let me ask you, how hard is it to find a good teacher today?
You know, I'll tell you, thinking back about a decade ago when I was a high school principal versus the talent that's out there now, I think it's getting much better. I don't know if the economy is part of that, where folks who might not have seen education as a great opportunity, maybe that's forcing it. I don't know. I do know that a lot of youngsters coming out of college now have a real social calling, a mission to try to help, particularly in our low achieving schools. Mm-hmm. And we're taking full advantage of that in Fulton County. And we're working with Teach for America as one partner. The New Teacher Project has also helped us quite a bit. And so we're trying to get folks, some top talent, into our hardest staffed schools.
Well, I say as a related question, there's been a lot of discussion lately about charter schools and charter school systems. Do you have any opinion in terms of pros and cons? I got actually an email from you in terms of some of your commentary, but want to elaborate from your perspective of the pros and cons of both?
So, I mean, I think first of all, we just need to make sure that our parents and our community really understand what charter schools are. We're a charter system, which sometimes causes a little bit of confusion. What does that mean? Essentially, we entered into a contract with the state of Georgia, allowing us to have the same level of autonomy that a charter school has. So if we want to let someone come in and teach who has a communication background and teach English, we can do that. We don't need to follow the state rules around certification. If we want to change our pay structure and maybe have differentiated pay for math and science teachers or special ed, we can do that. So we're really excited about the fact that Georgia's leading the way in the nation, giving school districts like Fulton County an opportunity to do some things differently. In terms of choice, Fulton County now already has about 10% of their children exercising choice, getting into startup charters. And then we also have a small portfolio of what we call conversion charters, where a traditional public school has asked to join into with the state and us to become a conversion charter. So it's still a public school with us, but it has an opportunity to work in autonomy.
And this, well, I was going to say, how do they
Sure.
fit with the public school system in Atlanta?
Yes, we have a number of charter schools within our system in APS, around 13 or so, and we are very proud of the work that those schools do. One of the things that charter schools often help our schools to do is really do some degree of reflection about why families, it's a viable choice for some families, but it also makes us to take a look at what's happening within our schools to determine what are the lessons that we can learn, what are some areas where we can improve, what are some of the things that we can put in place to ensure that our schools are schools of choice also.
One thing I think is just interesting, I've said this before, I think charter schools play an important role in a portfolio of options for parents, but I also say it's not a silver bullet. I've not yet to see a charter school who can scale to the size of an APS or a Fulton County and have success for 500, over 500 kids, right? 50,000 or 100,000 kids. That's really quite a big challenge, but we see it as a portfolio of options for our kids, and it's an important one. And I agree that this idea of competition does stir folks to stand up a little straighter and have a little more urgency.
Well, great responses. We're going to look forward to a further conversation about this important topic, so we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back for discussion in a moment.
We'll also talk about teacher compensation. What is the fairest way to evaluate a teacher's performance today? We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. We are talking to Fulton County Superintendent Bob Avossa and also Deputy Superintendent Karen Waldon from the Atlanta Public School System. Teacher compensation is a lightning rod issue, as we know these days, how to evaluate, how to eliminate, how to hire. In your opinion, Ms. Waldon, I'll start with you. What is the best way to evaluate a teacher today?
You're right. It is a lightning rod issue. We've seen that play out here very recently in the Chicago public schools, but I think one of the major pieces to consider with the evaluation of teachers is to avoid any measure that points to single indicators of teacher performance. And that means that we've got to take a look at multiple ways that teachers demonstrate competency, and along with that, providing quality support for teachers. I think that's critical before decisions are made in terms of any level of performance. Are teachers getting the professional support that they need to become proficient in their craft? But I think key to it is multiple measures.
There's so many factors involved, Superintendent Avossa. I mean, how can you possibly judge them all?
I mean, the bottom line is this. I think if you look at any industry, whether you're a firefighter, a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer, you've got to have a balanced approach to the way you evaluate a person. And what I try to say in Fulton County to my principals is, evaluations and performance management shouldn't be an event, it's a cultural issue. So we've got to have conversations all year long about what we're seeing that's going well, that's going right, let's highlight that. And then where there's areas of concern, I think you nailed it when you talked about it can't just be one measure. What's the support mechanism to help them? You'll never fire your way to the top. I do think that we've got a small percentage of our teachers that just may not be doing what they need to do, and we've got to have the courage to make those tough decisions. I also say that we've got a great majority of our teachers who are willing to get better, and we've not always done a good job as school districts giving them the tools they need to really improve their craft.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. And let's look at that in terms of the school system. What role do parents play in terms of making schools strong as well as be involved in their children's education?
Well, one of the things I've learned from the first day I started teaching was that where there's strong expectations and there's alignment between the home, the child, and the school, you've got great success. And where that's not happening, then you've got some major challenges. Now, that doesn't mean we lower the bar and we lower expectations. It's quite the opposite. We've got to help those kids even more because they don't have the parental support and expectation. We've been working really hard this year trying to get the faith-based community involved, community advocates out and helping our parents understand. You've got to push our teachers and our principals and your children to do better in school. They're not passive participants. They've got to be active.
Ms. Waldon?
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with Dr. Avossa. What we're seeing is, of course, the research bears out in that the level of parental involvement has a tremendous impact on student performance and student engagement. And I believe that what we're experiencing right now is to some degree a redefining of what we mean when we say parental involvement. We think about participation in local school councils, PTSAs, very important. But more important is how do we help parents engage in the home with their own children, especially in an urban school district such as Atlanta Public Schools? How do we support parents? How do we help ourselves to think outside of the box in terms of sometimes should we go to the parents within their communities? Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. How do we engage them beyond the walls of the school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just ask the next question. Fulton County is a great county, and we're also blessed to a large degree having two school systems, the Atlanta Public School System and the Fulton County School System. Each of you has a certain constituency. How can the two of you potentially, as districts or systems, work together in a collaborative way?
So Mr. Davis, who you know is the superintendent in Atlanta Public Schools, he and I have had some real strong conversations about that. We both just completed our first year as superintendents, and we've begun to have some conversations around potential partnership with leadership opportunities where we've both got issues with developing principals to lead schools. I have a major issue on my hands right now with having a bench of people ready to take on leadership opportunities. And what's happening right now is, unfortunately, a lot of the principals, we're stealing from one another, from Cobb to Cab, and the truth is it's not a long-term strategy. So that's one of the things that Errol and I have talked about. We also know that in developing teachers, there may be opportunities where we bring in guests from the outside to do collaborative work with us. How can we join together to do that? But we've only now just begun having those conversations.
Okay. And from the APS perspective, anything to add?
Yes, I know that Superintendent Davis is very excited about the relationship that he and Dr. Avossa have already forged, and we are very much looking for other opportunities to support. How do we look at succession planning? It's key. And oftentimes we don't have those quality leaders waiting in the ranks as we begin to move our school programs forward. So it's really exciting for us to think about opportunities that we might have to engage with Fulton County schools as we move forward in the work in Atlanta.
Well, I say it's encouraging to hear what the two respective systems are doing to work collaboratively together. Again, we're part of the same county, and hopefully in the future, Fulton County government and our Department of Children and Youth Services and other Health and Human Services can also work collaboratively with you. As you both know, we certainly have challenges in terms of high school dropouts and other issues that are going on in the school system, and we certainly respect what you do and are challenged with, but I think that there are opportunities for us to work in maybe in a collaborative way involving county government and the resources we have in terms of addressing these issues.
And we want to thank you both very much for joining us today. Appreciate your time and everything that you're doing for the kids and for the county and the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
When we come back, making sure election 2012 runs smoothly. Stay with us. And we're back. Joining us now is Dr. Rod Edmond, Chairman of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections. And Rod, as we know, there have been a few bumps in the road on the way to this election. There were some voting issues, of course, with the primaries, and then most recently a personnel issue with the director of the board. But we're on the way back and getting ready for the election. So
give us a sense of where things are. Give a little bit of background in terms of the role of the board and then your responsibility in relation to the Department of Registration and Elections.
Yeah, the role of the board is very simple. The board is supposed to oversee, I would say, the administrative and policy issues dealing with elections and registration in Fulton County. And it is not a micromanaging type of board situation. Our job is really the one thing that we have to do constitutionally by Georgia law is to select the director. And then after that, pretty much everything else is kind of oversight. And so that's pretty much the role of the board. I can tell you this, that in light of, all of the, I'll just say kind of bizarre circumstances that have occurred over the last few months, year or so, we are still very, very optimistic and positive. I can reassure all of the voters in Fulton County, taxpayers and the like, and citizens that we are very committed to having a seamless and an efficient election on November the 6th. That is paramount, that is the priority, and all oars are in the water working to swim upstream to make this thing happen.
So right now there's an acting director or interim director in place.
Correct. Ms. Sharon Mitchell, she has been the director of registrations now for about a year, and she has extensive experience in elections, probably about 10 years of experience. She's very, very competent and very, very eager to get this process moving and to make sure that we have a tight election on November the 6th.
Do we have other people in place now? Do we have boots on the ground or at least key personnel in places that will help make sure the election runs smoothly?
I mean, for sure. I mean, the change that took place was at the director's level. So in all of the other areas, everything else is pretty much full. I mean, we've got a director of registrations, Ms. Mitchell, for sure. She's going to be ascending to the directorship spot, but there's her surrogate or her assistant there is going to wind up taking up registration. Dwight Bauer, he has been there for a number of years doing elections, and we have all of the assistants and the like. And as you well know, I mean, each year that we have a general election or a federal election, the county graciously basically gives us all the resources we need to buff up and to make sure we do have boots on the ground, adequate poll workers, adequate people transporting the booths, adequate people who are prepared to answer phone calls when a machine goes down. All of these things that are intricate and integral to running a smooth election on November the 6th, we have them in place and moving.
Well, you've kind of addressed this in part already in terms of an orderly process, and granted, the board plays a certain role in relation to the department, but can you assure the voters that there may be some additional oversight or additional processes in place just to ensure that things are done in an order?
Let me just cut straight to the chase. I mean, obviously it is unfortunate that we have a change in leadership so close to the November the 6th election. That would not have been anybody's best case situation, but the facts are the facts, and it is much better that we've gone ahead and made the change at this juncture. And in order to basically shore up any possible, I'll say, loose ends, the board is committed to meeting once a week. They're called oversight meetings, where we will get weekly updates at a minimum. Quite frankly, we may wind up meeting more often than once a week as the election gets closer. The other thing is that we've been in very serious conversations with a couple of consulting companies who do elections, and they come in and they do what we call, hot elections. When I say hot elections, they come into situations where they know that they have to, come in and fix things real quickly. I can tell you there's not a whole lot that needs to be fixing right now. The precinct issue that we had before, back in July, it has been taken care of. But that being said, we're going to hire some consultants to come in to assist the people who we have there already.
And John, let me ask you what the commissioners of the county, what their role is in assisting the Board of Registration and Elections.
Well, first of all, we certainly recognize the role and the importance that the position that Dr. Edmond provides in terms of oversight. But the management team of our county is available and has been engaged in terms of providing some additional personnel. The commissioners, as Dr. Edmond pointed out, we've already allocated the resources, so the money's there. And I think there's an additional accountability factor in place when we have our bi-weekly board meetings. We actually ask for an update on the elections process. And so we just are we have a certain degree of confidence, strong confidence in the board, the new management leadership team that's in place. And so we're just sort of standing ready and available to help, especially in terms of additional resources if necessary and additional support that's needed as necessary.
I just want to thank the county and the Board of Commissioners. I mean, at no juncture have they not been helpful. Have they said, hey, you all are on your own? It's quite the opposite. They've said, whatever resources you all need to get this thing right, we'll make it happen. And guess what? We're going to call on those resources.
Well,
Don't ask for too much.
Let's go to the third rail here, the
Yeah.
voter. What is the most important thing that a citizen, a voter, can do between now and the elections, or to help make sure that the process runs smoothly from their perspective?
It's the obvious. I mean, first of all, people need to go and get registered to vote. I mean, I really encourage everybody, if you haven't done it thus far, call down to the county. Call down to the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections. I believe it's 612-7030. That's area code 404-612-7030, and ask them how to get registered to vote. The second thing is that if at any point when you get up that morning, you go to vote, you have any problems, once again, pick up the phone and call us. We will have 24 lines open, ready to field any and all questions that you may have about voting. And then the third thing is kind of like you need to be kind of our eyes and ears a little bit. If you see anything going on at the polls that you don't think is kosher or improper or whatever, once again, pick the phone up and call us. And we are committed as a board, and quite frankly, we're committed as a county to make sure that every Fulton County citizen's vote, it counts.
And something else, because we can't over-educate here, we probably need to emphasize again that people can vote early. They don't have to wait till November 6th.
You got it. Early voting is something that's been part of Georgia voting for a number of decades. Once again, call the elections office, and we will tell you where the nearest voting area is closest to your home. Again, the number is 404-612-7030. And I can tell you, for most people, it's better to vote early. You don't have to fight the lines.
Yeah.
You could just kind of come in and leave, and it's done. I always vote early. And weeks before the election, I'm walking around with that little peach thing on my lapel.
Yeah.
And I say, now you go vote.
And you can't be undecided at this point,
right,
can you?
right.
You're like living in a cave.
Well, listen, Dr. Edmond, I want to thank you for your engagement, your leadership, involvement on the board, as well as the others who are on the board. You're all volunteers, and so we really appreciate your affording your time, your expertise to help provide the oversight and to manage things over the past several weeks and months. And I want to just encourage all citizens, if there are any concerns that you may have about any county-related issue, feel free to call my office at 404-612-8206.
Thanks very much for joining us on the Chairman's Corner, and we'll see you next time. We got another show in 2 weeks, so we should do another voting block.
By who?